everybody, and welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Monday, January the 27th, 2025. On the show tonight, one of Canada's frontline nurses, Sarah Choujounian, who is still going through hell. She's still going through hearings, and we're going to hear how her case or cases, as the case may be, are going in just a couple of minutes. She is our live guest tonight. But first, I'm going to play you a video that she dropped on Instagram about a month ago that kind of explains it. And more than anything, what it does is it reveals the character of this person after what she's been through for the past year and a half, 2 years coming up now, and longer. Let's not forget that she was part of Canada's frontline nurses back in 2021, and they were touring across the country and obviously receiving a lot of hate from the other side during all of that time, and then being put through the ringer by the Ontario Federation of Nurses. I can't, there's all these different organizations and different names and different acronyms. She'll tell us all about that situation. Obviously, she's coming on in just a couple of minutes. Now, last night, if you missed last night's show about the 400 ostriches at Universal Ostrich Farm in British Columbia, please go back and watch that, share it, like it, get it out to as many people as possible, because this coming Saturday, CFIA, that's the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, is coming to that farm to destroy 400 of these ostriches, claiming their PCR tests confirm the presence of H5N1 on the property. And if that were the case, all of the ostriches there would be long dead by now, because this confirmation happened weeks ago. But no. The majority of the ostriches are still alive and well and healthy on this farm, and yet they want to come and kill them all on Saturday. There is the possibility of a court injunction coming this week. Carrie Simpson was on the show last night along with Katie Pasitny, whose mother is part owner of this ostrich farm. So please go back last night, watch that show, share it out there. Get it out to as many people as you possibly can. Likewise with this show. Shadow at Night live stream is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, CanadaNanoSilver.com, and we'll get more into that as the show goes on. Here is Sarah's video, the one she dropped on Instagram about a month ago.
You guys are not going to believe what kind of mail I just got from the CNO. And I thought, oh my God, like that was really fast. They already made the decision. But that's not what it is. Get ready, because I don't know what I'm going to do yet. I just received it. I'm not panicking. I'm not surprised, although we are kind of surprised that they did this before giving in the decision. But they've turned I thought there was 5 other investigations. I'm not sure what's going on, but they've turned all my other investigations. So there's 4 numbers on the cover letter, but there's only 3 packages of evidence, so I don't know. But 3 or 4 of my other investigations are now being sent to the disciplinary committee and hence being turned into disciplinary hearings. So that means that I have 3 or 4 more cases like the one I just went through, 30 days, that I'm supposedly going to go through. So 3 or 4 more disciplinary hearings to see why I shouldn't be a nurse.
How you doing, Sarah?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for coming on tonight. You know, the reason I played that video, as I was pointing out when the show first started a couple of minutes ago, is just to show your character after everything that you've been through these past couple of years with these hearings and whatnot. And the fact that you're still able to smile through it. I've seen other people make videos like this, and they're in tears by the end of it, like complete breakdowns. And yet somehow you manage to maintain your composure and carry on. This must have had some kind of an impact on you, but you don't show it.
Well, I try to be positive because I try to be a leader and I want to empower people to rise up and stand in their truth, and so that they can stand in their power. But to be honest, I do have moments where I cry a lot, and it's difficult, but I pick myself back up. That's the trick. And I try to take it one moment at a time, one day at a time. I mean, tomorrow's not promised. So if I panic for what's about to come, I'm kind of wasting my time. But to be like, I was crying this morning. So I do cry sometimes. I get overwhelmed. I'm tired, to be honest.
It's
But
a lot.
to be
It's a
done.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been going on for such a long time, as they say, and this expression has become kind of the norm now. The what is it? The process is the punishment, right?
Yes.
But this is absolutely outrageous what they've done to you here. And for those people who don't know Sarah, she was and still is one of Canada's frontline nurses. You guys did that remarkable tour across the country, Sarah, at a time when we really needed it. And I remember when you came to where I am in Winnipeg, you guys, and I remember, I think I told you this before the last time you were on the show, I was walking towards the hospital. This was Health Sciences Center where you guys were holding this. And I thought, what if nobody shows up? What if there's nobody there? As I was a block away. And then I got closer and closer, and I turned the corner, and I couldn't believe the turnout. There were thousands of people there. The police were there. They were making sure that traffic wasn't obstructed. They were making sure that the emergency bays were open, even though the media reported completely the opposite later on that night. And nobody from the left-wing corporate media was there. And I'm sure you had the same experience in every other city that you guys visited. And it was tremendous for all of us to see you guys stand up against the majority of people in your unions, in your organizations, in your places of work, whether it's a hospital, a clinic, or whatever. Can you take us back to those days and how that felt before we go on with your current plight? I just want to give everybody a reminder of what you've accomplished these past 3 or 4 years now.
Yes, absolutely. But before we go there, can I just say, in case that people don't stay till the end, I want to give 2 updates on 2 of my cases today, and I'm very happy to go back and talk about how it started. Sure. But it's the update on this College of Nurses case that you just showed on the video. But we also have a very important case coming up. So it's the 3rd year anniversary of the Freedom Convoy. And we are going to be back in court on February 4th and 5th for Justin Trudeau putting up the Emergencies Act declaration. And so I want people to know that we're there standing for freedom of speech and our rights to protest and stand up against mandates without having our accounts frozen and the Emergencies Act put up. So that's also very important. So please stay till the end or go check out my webpage at Sarah, SARAH, for the number, freedom.com. Okay.
All right, I'm going to throw this into the comments so people can click on it at their own pace here. It's in comments on Facebook, YouTube, X, Twitch, and it will be in comments on Rumble in just a second. But yeah, let's go back to 3 or 4 years ago when this all started.
Well, okay, so I'm going to try. I'm not going to. Okay. So
you don't have to go through everything because we don't want to be here for 5 or 6 hours. But I mean, just take the highlights and how it formed and how you guys managed to make such an impact in such a short period of time. It was amazing.
Okay, great. So I worked in a nursing home, for those of you who don't know, and I've been a nurse since 2004. And I also worked in the community through an agency, worked with disabled kids, giving respite to parents, which I love. But working in a nursing home, well, I also have, okay, let me go back a little bit very quickly. In 2017, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and it took the medical industry over a year to figure out what was wrong with me. I did so many tests and labs and exams, and I was literally falling apart. Things were getting worse and worse, and the doctors were like, well, maybe it's all in your head. And I was like, oh my God, single mother of 3, having a hard time getting up in the morning, couldn't go to work. I was crippled, I felt. And so I was exhausted. I was in so much pain. I was having memory loss. I was starting to it's so much. They thought I had rheumatoid arthritis, endometriosis, bladder issues, sciatic nerve. I felt bugs crawling on my skin. And they were like, well, maybe it's all in your head. Doctors that I've been with for 20 years that know me quite well. So I was like, oh my God. So I started doing my own research. and found out that, about fibromyalgia and how it's all about toxicity. And toxicity meaning anything that causes stress in your body. So inflammation and stress. So anything that gets your fight or flight going. And that could be so many things. Like we have heavy metals, we have so much chemicals in the food and the water and the air and medications. But most importantly, a lot of stress comes from trapped emotions and unresolved trauma. And that made a lot of sense to me because I have a lot of trauma in my past. And I was quite a heavy drinker and smoker. And I ate a lot of sugar. And so that made a lot of sense. And around the same time, the medical industry diagnosed me. I was referred to a neurologist who touched me a few points like this and said, oh, yeah, you have fibromyalgia. And so what happens here in Canada when you have fibromyalgia, so it's the two main symptoms are exhaustion and widespread pain for more than 6 months. But every other symptom in the book can come under, like, also goes under that. But what they do is that they offer you, since they don't know really what it is, they give you the Band-Aid medication. So like painkillers, sleeping pills, hormones maybe, right? And I was like,
nothing that's actually going to get to the root of the issue.
Oh no, God forbid. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do that, because what happens is that you want to do it because you're in so much pain, you're exhausted, right? So I can imagine people just go for it. And what happens is that you feel good for a while, but then you become tolerant and you need higher doses and then higher doses until you can't have a higher dose. And it's known to possibly be a long-term disability here in Canada. So I was like, I am not going down that road. And I felt like it was time for me to get the help that I needed for my trauma. So I went to the Gatehouse here in Toronto. It's a safe space for adult survivors of sexual abuse. And there I found out that I was super normal for what I had gone through. And it really helped me release the shame that I carried. And so that helped me to start accepting myself and forgiving myself. And, in came the self-care and the self-love. So within a few months, I got sober. I started going to the gym. I started eating healthy foods. I lost 60 pounds. And most importantly, I stood in my truth. I started staying in my truth. So a lot of us who have trauma are people pleasers, and we betray ourselves all the time. And this makes us sick, actually. That's like, there's really good books like The Body Keeps the Score and things like that you can read on that. But so here I was in the best shape of my life at 40 years old. And I loved the program so much, I started facilitating there at the Gatehouse. And I found out that a lot of people with trauma have somatic illnesses and are having the same struggle and anxiety from not being able to figure out what's wrong with them. And I was telling them about like what I went through, and they were starting to get better. So I found it lighting up dark corners, and I thought, this is my purpose. I'm turning my pains into gains, right? I'm transcending my pain into wisdom for others. And I thought, this is my purpose. It kind of made everything that happened to me, I don't want to say worth it, but you know what I mean? Like it now all made sense, because I love helping others with the tools and knowledge they need to start their healing journey.
It was preparing you for your calling further on in life, I think.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, exactly. But I wasn't ready for the calling, because I had 2 nursing jobs that were giving me, stable income. And I was a single mother of 3 with a lot of debt. So it kind of took the back burner. And then the pandemic hit. And so I worked in a nursing home. And when you work in a nursing home, the government doesn't care about these people. It's all about giving them the cheapest food possible and pushing as much meds as possible. Like, you can tell it's all about profit. They literally get a fraction of the money for their food, their daily food allowance, than prisoners do. And so I was like, nobody's going to believe this. This is crazy. Shutting down the economy, never heard of before, right? Yeah. So I get to, oh, yeah?
No, I just said, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I didn't even realize they said it.
Oh no, okay.
Go ahead.
So I get to work and I'm thinking everyone's gonna think this is crazy. And I was shocked because nobody wanted to hear anything I had to say. They were like, Sarah, don't start with this. And there was checkpoints to check our temperatures right away. We had to put masks. People were not allowed, family members were no longer allowed to come in. And so I decided that I was chief steward of the union back then. Because I had, when I healed, I got so empowered, I started taking leadership positions, right? And so here I was as chief steward calling the union, like telling them, like, what are we going to do? They're taking away our rights. They're taking away our residents' rights. And the union turned around and said, Sarah, don't you care about your residents? And I was shocked because they knew me very well. They knew I cared about my residents. Right. And so I got scared. I thought, oh, this is like, I'm going to lose my jobs. Anyone who worked in a nursing home couldn't go to their other jobs anymore. Right. Because we didn't want to cross contaminate. So I was losing money already and I got scared and I stayed quiet. And as I stayed quiet, I started seeing my residents deteriorate. I had a resident that died of a heart attack within a week of not having families coming in. And people were like, oh, Sarah, it's coincidence. And I was like, are you guys serious? This was the type of residence that I came in the morning and I had to call her daughter and find out exactly what time her daughter was going to be there because her mom was going to ask me every 5 minutes. When's my daughter coming? When's my daughter coming? And if her daughter was 2 minutes late, it would escalate into an anxiety attack. And this lady had heart issues. So what do we expect to happen when we don't let loved ones in after a week to people like this? Well,
Sarah, I want to stop you for 1 second. There's this video that has become famous over the last couple of years of this senior resident living in the video I'm talking about, where her son is talking to her through the glass.
I posted it right away.
Yeah. Did you see anything like that?
Absolutely. They were doing window visits as it moved on, they started doing window visits. And it was detrimental. The residents didn't, like you see in that video, a lot of them didn't understand. They didn't care. Like if they were going to die of a virus, they just want to see. I mean, nursing homes is the last stop. They have nothing else to look forward to. They come to life when their family comes. And so it was absolutely devastating. And some of them would get so agitated. And I even heard the management at some point saying, maybe it's better if these people that were getting too agitated, we don't give them the window visits. Right. And then they would try to convince the family not to, that it was bad for them and this and that. It was disgusting.
These people who were discussing these things, did they understand? Had they experienced what you had seen on the floor?
They're managers. They worked on the floors before some of them worked on the floor before they were managers. The ones that were saying this, the administration, no. But I mean, they teach us how to act on the floor. Like they teach us about right. We have all these in services and all these things. And everything went out the window.
So after all of this, how did you founded an organization before Canada's Frontline Nurses, right?
Yes. So when I started seeing, because on top of it, they started testing us. And 3 housekeepers tested positive in my nursing home. And now everybody had to stay in their rooms for 14 days until everybody was clear. And some of them would not listen. And some of them have dementia. And so you couldn't keep them in their room. And so they were said to have a behavior. The doctor would be called and they'd get sedated. And I've seen some people would not want to listen and still wanted to go with their walker, do their walking in the hall. And some of them would be agitated. Some of them, this specific lady that I'm thinking of, she's Italian. She big language barrier. Her Italian is even broken up. Like it's an old kind of Italian, a dialect or something. And so she was very difficult to understand and she was getting agitated. So they just took her walker away. And I was like, that goes against everything we've ever learned. Someone who has a walker has a unsteady gait, and so they can lose balance. And we always know someone who has a walker, they always have to be supervised. They can never be left in their room without their walker because they're at risk for falls. And we all know when old people fall, they might break their hip and it's all downhill from there. So, I saw a lot of stuff. I got to tell you, it was just so disgusting. And it came to the point where my mental health really deteriorated. I was crying all the time. Like I was regressing. I started smoking weed again. I was trying to escape. And I had to really sit down and be like, what's happening to me? Why am I regressing so much? And I realized, I healed because I started standing in my truth, and I started to stop telling myself lies or dissociating from things. And I really started to look at the things that I didn't want to look at and stand in them. And that's how I healed. I became aligned with myself. And here I was disaligned once again because I knew this was wrong, and I wasn't saying anything. So it was putting me on the side of the oppressor. And so I felt gross. And I was like, you're doing this because you're scared because of money. And it came to the point where I decided this is not worth it. And I just decided to speak out.
It's interesting that you say that, you're on the side of the oppressor. I know so many people, even now, who are still doing this, right? Like they'll come to me privately or they'll send me a message or, whisper in my ear at some function that I'm at. I really appreciate what you're doing. Keep it up. Right. Yeah. Of course, I can't say anything because of my job and I have to protect my family and all of that. And I'm thinking, wow, man, if 1 million people just spoke up, the ones who feel exactly as you do, then this would be over. All of the oppression and still what's going on, it would be done. They would not be able to continue with this nonsense.
Yeah.
And yet here we are still going through it. But anyway, take us back to the founding of
and that was the plan. That was the plan. So I founded Nurses Against Lockdowns, and thought so the mission was to unite nurses, educate the public, and bring the ethics back into healthcare. And so founded Nurses Against Lockdown. And I was asked to do my first speech in October 2020. And so I did my first speech and presented Nurses Against Lockdowns and thought, all the nurses are finally going to come up because they're not going to be alone and we're all going to stand together and we're going to shut this down. So you can imagine how disappointed I've been in the last 5 years.
It sounds like that Jerry Maguire scene when he goes, "Who's with me?"
No one. No. There was there was one nurse that stood beside me, Diane Phillips. I'll never forget her. But I believe she's a retired nurse. So, she didn't join us for the whole Canadian frontline nurses against lockdown things and all that, but she stood with me and I still this day appreciate her. So started Nurses Against Lockdowns was, posting things like that video of that lady that was trying to get out, or there was this other one that was called The Hand of God. And so it was so gross. So people didn't have any contact when they were dying because their family members couldn't come and staff was so busy and scared to go in the rooms. So they were really isolated. So they would take 2 gloves, fill them up with water, tie them up together and put the person's hand in the middle to make it so that if they're not alone, like someone's holding their hand. Anyways, so it was just...
What?
It was insane. It was insane. And I was like, how is this happening? How are nurses who are here to care, going with this? It was a nightmare. It still is.
Well, we experienced that whole thing too, that when you guys came through Winnipeg and there was all those people there, some nurses came out from the hospital or some who were walking in for a day shift or whatever. And I remember the looks on their faces. There was 3 of them that came out and said, "You guys are doing a great job." And the rest were like, "Oh my God, these people are totally anti-science. I can't even believe it." And I'm wondering, how on earth could you say such a thing? You know better than that. Did you have people that you knew that thought you were right, but still sided with the other team?
Oh yeah.
And they looked you right in the face?
Well, yeah, there was a few nurses where I worked, but they're still there and they're vaccinated now. And nobody reached out to me after I spoke out. Like it was like, oh my God, don't touch her with a 10-foot pole because we're all gonna get like people are still scared of like, for example, there's a group of nurses that meet from Ontario, and there was a letter that was written, and one of the nurses in the group was saying we should send this to the CNO to back up Sarah. And the other ones were like, yeah, but we're going to have to be anonymous. Like we're 2024. I just told them like it doesn't hold, like it has no weight. Right. But it's like people are really still scared to lose their jobs, their licenses. And well, I'm the example. And I think they did a pretty good job.
Well, I mean, the same thing is going on right now in Alberta. You know that they came out with that report from the commission that Danielle Smith started a couple of years ago, or maybe just last year. To study the effects of the COVID lockdowns and specifically the vaccine. And they came out with their report saying that we got to stop this stuff. And now there's a backlash, a scientific backlash, they're calling it, from the AMA, the Alberta Association of Doctors, and all of the left-wing corporate media, obviously, is jumping on board. And they're calling it anti-science. And we're talking about people who are lawyers, right? They have no knowledge of the people on the board that went through all of these procedures and vaccines have. And they're getting traction somehow on social media still, even though we know now so many of the harms that this stuff has caused and deaths. I had a close friend of mine who died of a heart attack at 53 last week. She was 53 with 2 young kids. We had arguments over this for the past 3 or 4 years. She thought I was nuts. And then she's just gone one day. Yeah. She never had a history of anything like this before. And there's so many people that I've had on this show over the past 4 years who tell me, I mean, Kayla Pollock, she's in a wheelchair for the rest of her life now.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Michelle Wharton.
Mom, right?
Pardon me?
She's a single mom too.
Yeah. Yeah, and Michelle Wharton in BC, you know, she's going through all kinds of, she had brain surgery in the United States because of this. And because no doctors in Canada will acknowledge what she's been through. And I'm dumbfounded that these doctors cannot, for whatever reason, and this is their colleges, right? This is their colleges threatening them that if they come out and say anything or do anything or, you know, prescribe a treatment for somebody, that they will be blacklisted like you have been.
Oh yeah, doctors their license are being revoked. They just did it to Dr. Trozy, who is kind of the equivalent of me. Our cases are not about the vaccine; they're about freedom of speech, right? In medicine, and so his case didn't do well at all.
No, he didn't even get an appeal.
Yeah, they denied his appeal.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's interesting. I met him last year. What a great guy and funny. Yeah. A lot of people don't know it because you see him on a video. He's always so serious, but he's funny. He is.
And he plays guitar and sings cool songs about the pandemic. I love him. He's amazing.
Okay, so you guys got together, you and Kristen and the others, you got together. You came up with Canadian Frontline Nurses. You did your tour. When did the college come down on you? When did you first hear that you were going to be in some hot water?
Well, it was before we did we went around the country. It was when we came back. So me and Kristen were invited to speak in Washington on January 6, 2021, not knowing at all, right beside the Capitol, not knowing at all that it was political. We were invited by Del Bigtree, and we were supposed to go to Florida, where Erin Marie, one of the first American nurses to speak out, and Nicole Saratek, we were all going to meet there. But then we were invited in Washington. So we ended up there and got mixed up in all of that.
Oh, God. I can't even imagine. Like, would have been worse if you guys would have gotten arrested and then held for the last 4 years. What would have been worse? What would have been worse, spending 4 years in jail in the States or what you've been through?
No, I'd rather go with what I've been through, because some of the best moments in my life were in these last 4 years too. Like, it's really real big ups and real big downs. but zero regret. So no, I don't want to be in a jail where they can vaccinate you and do what they want with you. That would be horrible.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, but we came back as domestic terrorists. Like, we were defamed internationally by the media. I can't tell you. I mean, there was death threats before that, but after that, it was like, oh my God. And we had the RCMP show up at our doors, and yeah, it was
You
crazy.
guys watching right now, you should Google Sarah's name here and then see what comes up. It's some of the left-wing corporate media stories are absolutely outrageous. They are outrageous. You're right. They paint you as a domestic terrorist, like you're a criminal. You're, just for doing what you did.
Oh yeah.
And it just shows the polarization. Anyway, please continue. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. Like, they had me on a roll on CP24 every half an hour. Like, we were like the killer nurses. Like, it was just like insane, right? And so, but whatever. We just we were like, okay, well, we're already. So that's when they actually. So I got that. Then when we came back, because of all that media attention, my second job, the agency, fired me. And then I was put under the first investigation, which is the one that turned into the disciplinary hearing that just ended in 2024.
So that one went on for a year and a half. It was 30 days, but it was 30 days staggered over the course of a year and a half, right?
Yes. So it was supposed, yeah, exactly. It was supposed to be a 7-day court case, our experts against theirs. And it ended up being 30 days. And my experts were, you probably know, Dr. Byron Bridle and Dr. Stephen Pellick from the COVID Care Alliance, and they were hardly qualified. Most of my evidence has not been put in. They were so rude to them. It was embarrassing. Like, they called Dr. Bridle a vet. They just discredited them for days.
Wait a minute. Wait. We're talking about Dr. Byron Bridle?
Yes.
They called him a veterinarian?
Yes, he's never worked with people. And he was trying to explain to them that when you're an immunologist, you work with animals' immune system. He was also part, like, a vaccine maker, and had something to do with the vaccine, not the mRNA one. So they didn't want him to talk about the mRNA vaccine because he hadn't worked on it.
Well, he studied it. He studied it. He came out 4 years ago and said this is going to be a calamity. I mean,
yeah. He has tenure. He has tenure, thank God. But yeah, so the evidence is not in after 30 days.
So they disqualified your experts.
Yeah. And their experts, they made their expert look amazing. Their toxicology expert was drinking Diet Coke on the Zoom call at 9:30 in the morning, telling us about toxicity.
Yeah, just practice what you preach, right?
I was like, oh my God, this can't be real. You gotta laugh, because it's like there's a lot to cry for. There's so much gaslighting in this. I was on the stand for 6 days. I think that's the most exhausting time of my life, because I was so tense for all that time.
So how were you treated badly while you were on the stand?
Well, they tried to. So I had 3 days was my lawyer, questioning me so that we get things out. I went through the whole code of conduct and the standard of practice, and we showed through every point how I did what it said and they didn't. But they still say that, it's not true. But yeah, I forgot what the question was.
Oh, I'm just saying how you were treated in
these
hearings.
Oh yeah, and then the second part was the cross-examination. And of course, they try to make me look like a big crazy Trumper, QAnon person.
Can you recall any? Can you recall any instances what they said to you that were absolutely ridiculous?
No, I can't, because I was so nervous. The only thing I remember is that I told them, I was like, listen, I did everything that I was supposed to. I thought I was going to get a reward, and they didn't think I was funny at all. And my lawyer was like, this is your reward. The punishment, right? But yeah, I don't remember, but it was, yeah, it was a difficult cross-examination. They were trying to make me look crazy.
Was
And
it via Zoom or was it in person?
everything by Zoom.
Well, why not in person? I mean, there's no more restrictions, there's no more mandates. Why
I
couldn't you
don't,
go?
I don't know. I was told that maybe it was because they didn't want people to show up in person.
Did you have people who were able to watch this?
Yeah, so it was a public hearing, but the thing is that people had to reach out to them and ask for the links like 2 days before, usually every two, like for 1 or 2 court days. And so it kind of made it difficult for people. At first, some of them got blocked, they weren't getting it. But there was hardly any people watching, to be honest. That was one of we wanted to make people aware of this, because the more public is watching, the less they can act like the way they're acting, or at least people will see how corrupt they are.
Yeah.
But it made it very difficult. And I think the most we had was maybe 40, 50 people at a time.
Wow.
Unfortunately.
So you finished that hearing. You did an Instagram on that. You were happy that it was over with, and you didn't know when the ruling was going to come out.
No, we don't.
Then you dropped another video just a couple of days later about a package that you received in the mail.
Yeah.
Or got an email, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so they haven't, and it's kind of crazy, because the first case is kind of like, it's freedom of speech, and 2 of the other 3 cases is also about freedom of speech. So it kind of doesn't make sense that they don't come out with the results of the first one. But I guess that they've decided that I was guilty or something. I don't know. But yeah, so as I said, so the first investigation was after we came from Washington, but then there was investigations. I think when there was other people complaining. There was another investigation when we did the hospital protests, I believe. One of the investigations that's coming against me now is because I had like 4 summons for speaking during the lockdowns and organizing protests. And I didn't report it to them. I didn't know I had to. I didn't think it was criminal, and they were all dropped. So I didn't report it to them. So that's one of the things. They're like, you didn't report your charges. And the other one is about my views and my experience with gender dysphoria, and how I believe that, programming our kids with pronouns and transitioning is creating a big mental health crisis in our country. And so I'm being brought to court for those beliefs too.
Wait a minute. Is that a criminal thing? Like when you get brought to court or these hearings, is it like a legal process, or is it something other? Is it like to determine whether you're fit to remain a nurse in Ontario?
Well, it's their courts, right? So I'm in their courts right now. So definitely if we don't anticipate that it's going to be a great result. So we plan on appealing it to the court, so to the divisional court, just like Dr. Trozy did. So this is really the college's court. The panel constitutes of 3 registered nurses in the disciplinary committee, and public member appointed by the government. So those 4 people are going to decided that my experts were not qualified. And decided that
Wait a minute.
I know Dr. Byron Bridle does not know.
These women, these nurses appointed to this commission, and then somebody from the public appointed by the government says Dr. Byron Bridle is a hack and he should not be allowed. And these are the people who are going to determine your innocence or guilt.
Yes, and they're guided by the college's lawyer, obviously, right? So and I think it's so biased, like, because even if they decided that, oh my God, like this is crazy, because you can tell when I was on the stand, they were kind of surprised and kind of woke up and we were less bored and we're like, oh my God, like, listening to my story and all of that. But how would they go against the college? Like, I can't see it happening. They couldn't even stand up when it was time. They're still like, in the same, like, vaccines are safe and effective mode, right? So
what's the penalty if, aside from the process, like when they finally come up with their ruling, what could happen to you? Just over this case, never mind what you still have yet to face.
Yeah, so they can revoke my license, which is expired, and I can't renew it, obviously, because I'm under investigation and in a hearing. But it's I'm supposedly I might be thrown all the costs of these 30 days, and their 4 or 5 lawyers or whoever is like on their side. So they might give me like the costs of all this. And yeah, again, throwing more cases at me, right?
So wait. The cost of all of these lawyers and all of this time could run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars here.
Yeah.
Have obviously you've wondered how much it might be. Like, is there a formula to come up with a number, or is it just like a wild guess?
No, it's like a wild guess, I guess. But I saw someone else who went through the same with the same lawyer or litigator. It was with a chiropractor. It was also a 29-day case, and they charged her 800,000.
800,000. So did they ever expect they're going to receive this money, or like let's say they
well,
said
I don't think so. I think they know that I sold my house, and you know, and you took my money out of the bank and bought silver that's all gone now. So
if they said to you, "Hey, Sarah, you owe us $800,000,"
help me pay the bills. Like,
yeah, like I mean, they're never going to see it. So what is the point? Or did you say something about retraining too?
Oh, no, they haven't spoken. They could do that. They can come up with that, and then they make us pay for the training too. But it's important to know my case has precedence, right? So precedence for freedom of speech and nursing. And so they really don't want this case to go by, because if this case goes by, then they can't also punish all the others who spoke out and are under investigation.
What does your lawyer say? I mean, because there is kind of a precedence, as you point out, with Dr. Trosi, right?
Yeah, but Dr. Trozi's case is still different because doctors have different liabilities. He had maybe said some things that were maybe a little bit more controversial than mine. Everything I said, actually, pretty much everything I said, all 11, I swear it's 11 allegations, are all known to be true today. But they keep saying that I had no way of knowing in 2020, and they wanted peer-reviewed research that I saw in 2020.
But they had no way of knowing back then themselves.
No, but they
said it anyway. Safe and effective. Safe and effective. No, it wasn't.
No, it wasn't. But they're still.
I'm sorry for yelling, Sarah. I just got a little excited there. It's outrageous. So what now? What happens next?
Well, we're just waiting. We're waiting for the decision and the penalty, and then we'll take it from there. But we want to appeal, and so we still need help for that case. Although a bigger case is coming in right now for February, so I'm trying to focus on that one right now.
This has taken over your life, hasn't it? I mean, it's a legal battle that is taking every single minute of every single day of your life. Do you have time to enjoy yourself? Are you allowed to do that? Like, just find.
I'm trying to let myself do that. I kind of have I have high expectations of myself, so I'm learning. It's been for me since I started my healing journey, like to let myself, not always be so serious. Although I'm very, I joke around a lot.
Yeah.
But, I do have, I go to the gym every day, and I'm trying to spend more time with my kids who are grown now. And no, I'm trying to take it day by day. I actually like meeting people. And, I'm trying to get people to do fundraisers for me or get on shows like this. Like, I love meeting people like you. And, so, I mean, there's a downside to all of this, but really, I'm not going to die with the pain of regret like a lot of my residents do. I've lived a life. Like, I'm living, I've accomplished things, and I'm proud of myself. Most of the time, there's no issue. Like, I'm okay.
But, I'm sorry to bring you back down here.
That's okay.
I mean, you still got these things hanging over your head, right? Like all of these investigations and more hearings, possibly. I mean, like, how do you get your life restarted into something new? What are you doing now? Like, for
Well,
money, aside from the Give, Send, Go, and like, I suppose that there's a link on your website, right? SarahForFreedom.com.
yeah, absolutely. And those are for my legal fees. But I do so remember the story of how I found it lighting up dark corners and never had time to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that when you do what's right and when you stay aligned with yourself and do what's right no matter what, God takes away, or the universe is like, I believe he was like, I knew I had to stop doing nursing because I was looking at it like, oh my God, like I'm not helping people, I'm harming. I'm part of like big pharma's like tool to, make profit for people. So I wanted to get out, but I was kind of stuck in the like fear with money and stuff. Obviously now it's like, oh yeah, money is,
It
it's,
just doesn't mean much anymore,
no,
does
it
it?
doesn't. No, it doesn't. I don't have those shackles anymore, right? I had to sell my house. I knew when I spoke out, I was going to sell my house. And I really try to think like, as long as I have my soul, and I believe in my capacity to adapt to anything and find ways, because I've been on a long journey before this. And I made it through every single time. So I believe in myself. But I found it. So lighting up dark corners is back. So I do one-on-ones. I have a heal program to empower people to stand in their truth. I have a free workshop actually that's a preview to it, so that people that can't afford it can actually have some tools, because it's all about, I don't believe in the patient mentality that the hospitals have, where, we are victims and we need something from the outside to heal us. And I really don't like that. I believe that we're active participants in our care. And when we're ready to heal, like I, with lighting up dark corners, for example, I give people the tools and knowledge they need to heal every day and every moment, because you're in your head all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit different than like talk therapy, although talk therapy is really good too. But I run support groups where I teach people the tools and knowledge they need to do it on their own, right, as they go in their life, because it's a lifetime journey. Obviously, it's a 10-week support group program, but you get the tools and you're way started on your journey. And I have a RISE program. I'm trying to train facilitators to run it across the country. I have a vision of having a whole bunch of lighthouses, I call them, where I run the programs. So I'm trying to build that, although you're right, I do often get distracted and thrown back into fundraising and things like that. But I'm surviving, and I don't need too much. So I'm okay.
You ever thought about maybe doing like, I know you've done the nationwide tour before with frontline nurses, but I mean, with the lighthouse lighting up dark corners thing, that might be cool.
I did it, and we did it, me and Nordia, because we went east with Canadian Frontline Nurses, but then me and my friend Nordia, we went and did lighting up dark corners, and I got quite a bit of people. But yeah, I'm thinking of doing it again. But I'm also writing a book.
Oh, well, that'd be interesting to read that. Like all the little details that happened along the way. That'd be
and pictures and stuff. I was like, oh, people are going to love this.
All right, Sarah, thank you for coming on the show tonight. We want to mention those things, right?
Well, yeah, but I thought we were going to talk about the most important case, the Emergencies Act.
Oh, okay. Let's talk about that then.
Yeah.
I thought we already had. There's so many of them. I get confused. All right. So the Emergencies Act. This is the beginning of February, right? First week.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah. So again, so it's the third anniversary, 3 years anniversary of when we had the Freedom Convoy, and we're going back to court on February 4th and 5th for Justin Trudeau's
sorry to laugh. You say, oh, wait.
Yeah, because remember I told you that was the important case.
That's right. Tonight. That's right. Okay, so the 3-year anniversary of the convoy, right, and the Emergencies Act. Okay.
Yes, and we're there. We're there to defend freedom of speech and our right to protest for against government mandates, and not having our accounts frozen, and not having like the War Measure Act, that's the name it used to have, be put on us for being united and loving and peaceful, right?
So is this a court case? Where is this happening? Who's all involved?
Yes, this is a huge court case, actually. And Canadian Frontline Nurses, we were actually, because we were boots on the ground, and our lawyers saw us like struggling, because Kristen Nagel was actually filming. She filmed the whole convoy for 3 weeks, and she was collecting donations and giving it on video to truckers, right? We were getting donations and we were giving it. And we were part of the convoy. We were on the website. We had a hotel room and a few hotel rooms, and Kristen had like truckers like showering, doing their laundry, warming up, right? And so our lawyers were kind of concerned when they started freezing accounts. So we took action right away. And we were the first ones to go to challenge the government for putting up the Emergencies Act. And how fantastic it was that we won, but there was 2 other groups that were there, academic legal groups. We were the only groups representing the people. And so the judge didn't really want to hear us because we were kind of controversial. And we were the only ones saying that there was no emergency. Like the Emergencies Act was not supposed to be put. And we were also the only ones that was saying that, the government had put it there because he was humiliated and didn't want people to oppose to his, it was for political reasons, right? It wasn't because there was an emergency and we were scared. And the way he called us like racist, extremist, violent fringe minority, so our lawyers are the only ones like standing up for the people and wanted to speak about the stories, and we were kind of shut down. So we're appealing that too. So Justin Trudeau is appealing the fact that the judge did say that it was unlawful and unconstitutional, but it was all the legalities. It wasn't about like, you took away the voice of the people. Like, you need to hear the people. We were in Ottawa because we wanted someone from the government or the parliament to come listen to what we had to say. And then next thing you know, Justin Trudeau has COVID and runs away. And then he puts the Emergencies Act. So we really want people we want to stand in the fact that, he put that up there for political reasons. And we think that he should be held accountable for doing that. That's what?
But how do you, okay, you know what? Because I got a video ready. Karina Gould is running for the Liberal leadership. She was the government House leader. And somebody pulled a video of her from February 16th of 2022. So this is 2 days after the Emergency Act had been declared. And this pretty much sums up everything the Liberal Party said about all of the people who went to the Freedom Convoy. Let's look at this.
We must listen to each other, and we must assure that no one in this House is standing with those who support white supremacy, who support Nazi views, who look to contribute and enable racist views. And Mr. Speaker, I would ask that all of us in this House use our words judiciously, including the member opposite who just yelled out something completely inappropriate, because all of us have reason to be here. And I would call on the members opposite not to stand with those who are sharing those views, because how does it feel as a person in this House seeing colleagues taking pictures with people who are looking to overthrow the government? That's what I ask those colleagues to do.
Can you even believe that?
Yeah,
everything. Like in that 52-second clip, you were trying to take over the government. You were Nazis. You were right-wing extremists. And ironically, she's the one who had a Nazi, an actual one, in the House of Commons a couple of years after that, and tried to get it scrubbed from the official House of Commons record.
Yeah, a lot of projection going on. I mean, we were going to throw the government with our bouncy castles and hockey games and, giving food to the homeless and loving each other and hugging each other like we were bad.
Yeah. So they can't get away with that, obviously. I would love to see them held accountable for all of the lies they told. Is that what this is about?
Well, yeah, we want to, well, we weren't heard neither. And so that's unlawful. And so we want to be heard. We want the people to be heard. We want our voices to be heard. And so, yeah, this is what it's about, us going back to court for that. So appealing the fact that we were kind of put aside. The judge said we were offensive, I believe. And so, yeah, and people can also watch this. So there's a link on the webpage where people can go and sign up, because we need for people to be aware, but also like show up, right? To see, because people don't even know if this is really going on.
I didn't, and that's odd. Normally, I know
Right?
this kind of stuff. Wow, that's
So we
crazy.
need so we need to get the message out there. So if you scroll down, there's a place where they can about the in the emergencies part, there's like a little blue part, a link in it.
Okay. Emergencies Act challenge. So
Click
there it is.
here.
Click that link. Right. Okay.
Yeah. So then to register, right? They can register there, and they can go and look at the, watch, be a part of the case on February 4th and 5th. It starts at 9:30. And then also
9:30 Eastern.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
9:30 Eastern till 5.
That's all right.
And also, obviously, I always tell people, like, we need donations. Like, I need help. Like, this is like, I'm like, I can't do it on myself. But we also have to remember the government has unlimited funds of money. And I keep telling people, like, don't see it as donations, see it as an investment in our future and the future generations. You don't have to give a lot. Like, if everyone gave even just $1, like, we can cover all of this. Instead of buying a coffee, just send us the money. The links, the donation and the links are all on the webpage. But also, thank you so much for having me. I love having interviews because, again, you see, like, a lot of people don't know what's going on. So I really need to get on as much shows as I can. And I tell people, like, if you can, like, hold a fundraiser, I can show up if you're not too far, and say my story. Like, it doesn't have to be a big thing. Like, people, sometimes I went to a few where people just opened up their house, had coffee and tea available. And I showed up, said my story. People were so happy to mingle with me. And that was it. Yeah. But that helps, right? And plus it builds a community. So yeah, we need your help. We need support. And so thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Sarah. It's been great catching up with you and seeing how you're handling all of the crap that they've thrown at you and what you're doing going forward. I mein, this is all news to me. February 4th and 5th, you guys. You can hit the link on Sarah's website. It's Sarah, the number 4. So Sarah, SARAH. There's an H on this. Sarah 4, the number 4, freedom, all one word.com, and all of the information is there. Thank you, Sarah, for coming on tonight.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
We'll see you again. I'm going to watch the thing. By the way, who else is going to be at this hearing? Just the frontline nurses, or are there going to be more people?
No, the two other groups will be there. I keep forgetting who they are. I do have their names somewhere. Canadian Civil Liberties Association and the Canadian Constitutional Foundation.
Okay, cool.
They're just not representing the people.
They're representing their own particular ideologies.
Gotcha. Yeah, more like legalities and things like that, right?
Okay. Sarah, take it easy. We'll see you at the hearing. Hopefully everybody clicks in. Good luck with that.
Thank you. Take care.
Right. You bet. Bye-bye. There is Sarah Choujounian, one of Canada's frontline nurses. Guys, I still have an entire show to do. And I was thinking, should I do the show in the extension? Because there's lots of news to cover that we haven't covered yet because we had Sarah on. So should we stay live? Is it too late for you guys? Are you going to be abandoning the live stream right now, or did you want to stay with it? Because if you want to stay with it, I will keep it on social. I do have an extension for the members at shadowdavis.com after the news is over with. That involves Stephen Harper and Five Eyes, including CSIS, and the corruption therein. And I found it incredibly fascinating. Okay, so let's stick around here online. The Alberta government report urging a halt on vaccines, this was discussed briefly when Sarah was on the show with me, is facing a scientific backlash. Really? Now, this report came out last week. We haven't had a chance to cover it yet. But ultimately, this commission, which was put together at a cost of, I think it was $2 million. Oh, yeah, $2 million. It says right there at the bottom of that paragraph, by Danielle Smith and a bunch of contrarian doctors to go ahead and look through everything Alberta did in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, including the vaccines, the lockdowns, the entire 9 yards. So the report came out. It's 269 pages. I've gone through a part of it in the past few days. But look at this. All of a sudden, all of these shills are coming out and saying, "Dear Alberta government," this is Timothy Caulfield, by the way, and Timothy Caulfield is a professor of law. He has nothing to do with the science aspect of this. But he's saying, or sharing, that the Alberta Medical Association, regarding the report and the statement regarding the report, is anti-science and anti-evidence. It advances misinformation. It speaks against the broadest and most diligent international scientific collaboration and consensus in history. You see, that's the problem. There is never any consensus when it comes to science. What happens is, if you hold a contrarian view, these days anyhow, you get shut down, you get shut up, you get silenced. At least that's the way it was up until very, very recently. How problematic is the Alberta report on COVID? Very. Again, Timothy Caulfield. Dr. Luann Metz, the UCP, spent $2 million to prop up anti-science conspiracy theories. This report is full to the brim with misinformation and dangerous rhetoric that has real and profound impacts on public health. We have union leaders speaking out against this from every single union in the province, plus some that aren't even in the province. It's amazing to me, the coordinated and concerted effort that the establishment is using to try and discredit this report that was worked on for almost a year by a bunch of contrarian doctors who are scientists and did look at every single aspect with all of the evidence that's available now to come up with their recommendation that Alberta cease the use of COVID-19 vaccines. I find it absolutely outrageous that anybody could ever speak out against it so quickly. The report is very extensive. It's almost like when there was one football game a couple, 3 years ago. I think it was an NFL game. Maybe it was a college game down in the United States, where some kid just collapsed on the field, just suddenly collapsed on the field. And the commentators and the color guys were going, "What could this be from? He's young. He's 20 years old. This is outrageous. This should never happen." And one of the commentators on the broadcast said, "Well, it's obviously not the vaccine." How on earth would you ever know that? They're programmed to instantly say, "Well, it couldn't be the vaccine. It couldn't be the mandates. It couldn't be the lockdowns," whether they know it or not. It's programming. The Shadow at Night live stream is brought to you by CanadaNanoSilver.com. I'll be right back after this
Comparing
message.
Crest toothpaste to SilverSeuticals toothpaste. First, we're starting out with Crest. It's a classic. It's an original. It's what I've used most of my life. But that being said, it does have its problems. First off, the consistency is so weird and thick, and I get it's a paste, but it really doesn't spread that well. And I must also say that I'm not in love with the taste. I get toothpaste isn't supposed to taste good, but why shouldn't it? But that being said, it does get the job done. Next, we have SilverSeuticals. They have 3 flavors, but today we're going with Bubbleberry. And already it smells so good. So I'm excited to see what this tastes like. The consistency is also a lot smoother, and I must say it spreads way nicer in your mouth.
This literally tastes like fruit bubblegum.
Yeah, this toothpaste was pretty good. I actually went in for seconds, and it's infused with nano silver, so it helps remineralize your teeth and keep them fresh throughout the day.
100% go with SilverSeuticals.
And here's the results. What's your favorite toothpaste?
CanadaNanoSilver.com, CanadaNanoSilver.com. Get a hold of Kevin and Anna, 204-808-9292, or you can reach them through one of the contact tabs or the contact tab on the website. And if you're looking for retail locations, you can find them on the website as well on the retail locations tab. It's real easy. CanadaNanoSilver.com. Look at this story here. This is actually from the U.S. government. If you can see the website at the very top of the page. Look at the very top of the page. Justice.gov, United States. Press release. Pfizer agrees to pay nearly $60 million to resolve false claims allegations relating to improper physician payments by subsidiary. Pfizer, rather than being found guilty, decided to settle out of court. $59,746,277 Pfizer has agreed to pay to resolve allegations that prior to Pfizer's acquisition of Biohaven Pharmaceutical Holdings, Biohaven knowingly caused the submission of false claims to Medicare and other federal health care programs by paying kickbacks to healthcare providers to induce prescriptions of Biohaven's drug Nurtec ODT. Now, this is not a criminal fine. It's a civil thing. It's almost $60 million. Kickbacks. I wonder if one day when all of this gets investigated, that Pfizer, a company that's, I think, worth about $100 billion or more, I forget what their market cap is, it's probably significantly higher than that, will be litigated into the poorhouse. We're going to get into the Canada Foreign Interference Inquiry report, which was apparently leaked to the CBC earlier today and then pulled back. It's supposed to come out tomorrow. We're going to get into this story in just a second. But first, let's watch this video by a guy that I've never had on the show, although I have reached out to him and tried to get him on. We've just never been able to connect. Dr. Roger Hodkinson, who is still very, very upset with the way things have been handled.
Shall we forgive and forget?
Absolutely not. I'm full of vengeance. I am vengeful. It's not a time to say I'm sorry. It's a time to put these bastards in jail. I'm calling it the big kill. We've seen the biggest kill ever in medicine's history, directly because of the intervention of these idiots into healthcare. And it's the physicians, it's not just the politicians, it's the physicians themselves who are principally culpable because they have allowed government's jackboots to influence how they manage their patients, which has never, ever happened before. First, do no harm and informed consent. The physicians have looked in. How can you do this? How can you look into the eyes of a pregnant woman and tell her that this experimental product is safe? How can you do that as a physician? No. Any physician that has done that should be in jail.
I agree. Is Canada from left-wing corporate global? Is Canada ready and able to detect, deter, and counter foreign interference? Not when they keep deflecting and lying. Of course not. In order to solve a problem, you must first acknowledge that it exists in the first place. Canada's Foreign Interference Commission will present its final report into the question tomorrow, capping off nearly 16 months of work at a time when all eyes are also on the Liberal leadership race, blah, blah, blah. The inquiry was first established in September of 2023 after a series of reports by Global and the Globe and Mail exposed alleged attempts at meddling by foreign actors like China in recent federal elections and raised questions about the government's response. Justice Marie-Josée Hogue, a judge of the Quebec Court of Appeal, was appointed as commissioner. Multiple government officials, including Trudeau, have testified to the commission, and he lied bald-faced at that, too. An interim report released last year by Hogue determined that while foreign interference did not change the outcome of Canada's 2019 and 2021 federal elections, it did undermine the rights of Canadian voters because it tainted the process and eroded public trust. The interim report highlighted troubling events in the last two elections, which Hogue described as a stain on our electoral process. So what happens tomorrow? The commission's investigation was conducted in two phases. The first dealt specifically with interference that China, Russia, and other foreign actors may have engaged in and any impact it may have had on the 2019 and 2021 elections. Hearings in the first phase were held in March and April of last year, with the commission submitting the interim report in May. The initial report concluded that efforts by authoritarian regimes, primarily China, to meddle in Canada's democratic institutions prevented some Canadians from casting an informed vote. What will the final report contain? It will deal with the second phase of the commission's inquiry. The second phase looked at the role of government departments and agencies in detecting, deterring, and countering foreign interference. Hearings for the second phase were held in September and October of last year. In addition to public servants, the commission also heard from members of nearly a dozen different diaspora groups. The commission's public consultation team prepared summaries of the information it received from members of the Canadian public through more than 200 written submissions, 624 questionnaire responses, and consultation meetings held with 105 individual members of diaspora communities. Now, the thing to remember here, even when this report comes out tomorrow, is that they are holding back evidence of who these 11 elected officials are for 99 years. 99 years. They are not going to release those names. At least the Trudeau government won't release those names. I want to show you a little bit about the Macdonald-Laurier Institute here. It's important because they wrote a piece a couple of months ago that I didn't see up until today. The Macdonald-Laurier Institute, an institute because of their name that everybody in Canada associates with the Liberal Party, right? And the Quebec elites, the Laurentian elites, as they're known. The Economist described MLI, the Macdonald-Laurier Institute, in 2010 as a nonpartisan organization, and did a story in the Globe and Mail in 2024, or as did. MLI was included in a 2012 Forbes article by former Atlas Network president Alejandro Schufane describing the market-oriented think tank landscape in Canada. MLI was described in 2012 as one of a new generation of similarly minded think tanks to the Fraser Institute in a story published in the National Post. Now, the left-wing Marxist Broadbent Institute referred to the Macdonald-Laurier Institute as a right-wing charity in a 2018 article. MLI is one of 10 Canadian think tanks that belong to the Atlas Network, a conservative and libertarian group. MLI says it is nonpartisan. Having said that, this is what they wrote just back on October 31st, Halloween 2024. This is treason. Treason. It's not just some random, normal Canadian citizen saying that. Now we've got the Macdonald-Laurier Institute writing it. Chinese agents are running Canada. Daniel Dorman wrote this in the Telegraph. Canadian democracy is in serious trouble, based on a report released earlier last year. It appears that not only has China extensively interfered in Canadian institutions, particularly during the last federal election, but that members of Parliament have willingly colluded with various foreign powers against Canada's interests for personal benefit. We're never going to know who they are. The story grows stranger by the day as Canada's ongoing public inquiry into foreign interference reveals the troubling extent of the problem. And as politicians use the inquiry for political theater, Canadians risk losing track of just how serious the threat is and just how devastating the revelations of the report released earlier this year should be. On June 3rd, NSICOP, an advisory committee to the Prime Minister, released a heavily redacted report that held up Parliament for 2 months, by the way. outlining frightening instances of China's interference in Canada's democratic process. These include the creation of community organizations to interfere in specific electoral districts, the defrauding of a nomination election to install a pro-China candidate. What do you think's going on right now with this Liberal leadership? Carney has already been chosen. It's all just a play at this stage of the game. The practice of Chinese proxies skirting election finance laws by encouraging individuals to donate to a specific candidate with the promise they'll be paid back. It's disheartening to hear of significant foreign interference in Canadian elections, but it's absolutely devastating to watch the Prime Minister, whose party benefited from Chinese interference in the last election, shrug, attempt multiple cover-ups, and fail to defend Canadian sovereignty. Canadian democracy can't survive if those tasked with defending it are disloyal, dishonest, and naive. Perhaps the most disturbing part of the report is a redacted case study in which an unknown MP is said to have maintained a relationship with a foreign intelligence officer and to have proactively provided the intelligence officer with information provided in confidence. As Canadian national security expert Wesley Wark wrote, there's no other word for it. This is treason. Opposition MPs have demanded the redacted names of parliamentarians who wittingly assisted foreign state actors be named, but the government has staunchly refused to release any further information, citing national security concerns and the desire not to undermine due process of any ongoing criminal investigation. However, the report itself says that instances where MPs knowingly participated in the efforts of foreign states to interfere in Canada are unlikely to lead to criminal charges, despite the fact that some of the MPs' behavior may be illegal. Nobody's above the law, right? NSICOP sanctimoniously reminds MPs that all such behaviors are deeply unethical and contrary to the oaths and affirmations parliamentarians take to conduct themselves in the best interest of Canada. But a finger wagging in a committee report is hardly a fitting punishment for treason. The government only seriously responded to the threat of foreign interference after an intelligence officer leaked documents indicating the depth of Chinese interference to the Globe and Mail in February of 2023. Since then, Trudeau has dragged his feet every step of the way. He attempted to avoid an independent public inquiry into foreign interference by appointing former Governor General David Johnston, a friend of the Trudeau family and a man with clear ties to China, to the invented role of special rapporteur on foreign interference. And to his credit, Johnston eventually resigned from the role, recognizing the controversy surrounding his appointment prevented him from doing the job. When Johnston resigned and Trudeau was forced to call a public inquiry, two discouraging things happened. First, the government significantly expanded the mandate for the inquiry, indicating yet another instance of obfuscation from the core issue of Chinese interference in our recent elections. Second, the commissioner of the inquiry, Justice Marie-Josée Hogue, allowed 3 Canadian politicians with ties to the Chinese government to stand in the inquiry, granting them access to confidential documents and the capacity to cross-examine witnesses. The presence of these individuals led to 2 Chinese diaspora groups to refuse to participate, citing security concerns. With a tragic, truly tragic irony, even the inquiry meant to address foreign interference became a venue for repression and interference. Following this interim report from the public inquiry, the government did table Bill C-70, an act responding to countering foreign interference, but even here the efforts are minimal. As national security expert and Macdonald Laurier Institute senior fellow Christian Leprecht testified before the House of Commons Committee on National Security and Public Safety, the bill represents the absolute minimum the government would have to do anyway, only once its hand was forced. The Prime Minister's abdication of responsibility also came through loud and clear in the NSICOP report itself. In a section titled Briefing Parliamentarians, it becomes clear that between 2018 and 2022, the Prime Minister received and failed to respond to at least 4 detailed reports from 3 different government bodies or advisors recommending that new MPs be briefed on the risks of foreign interference. When asked why he didn't act on those recommendations, Trudeau reportedly responded that he thought the Parliamentary Protective Service already briefs new parliamentarians about foreign interference. That is shocking negligence. Canadian democracy is flatlining, and those tasked with defending it are best asleep at the wheel and at worst complicit in its downfall. Daniel Dorman, who wrote that piece, is the managing editor and director of operations at the Macdonald-Laurier Institute and a contributor to Young Voices. So when this report comes out tomorrow, take it for what it's worth. Here is Pierre Poilievre doing a CTV News interview in the Maritimes over the weekend, and it's a little disappointing if you ask me. Watch.
How we're going to
look, President Trump is a deal maker. He wants to win, but we're both going to lose as Americans and Canadians if we get into a trade war. So what I would say is, how do we position the decision for him so that he understands that America can only win if it allows open, unbridled free trade with Canada? So I would retaliate, and I would target products and services that A, we don't need, B, we can make ourselves, and C, that we can buy elsewhere so that we maximize impact on the Americans while minimizing impact on Canadians. Secondly, I would pass an emergency, bring it home tax cut on work, investment, making stuff in Canada, energy, home building, so that we can stimulate more economic growth here. Three, we need to become more self-sufficient. That means knocking down barriers, more interprovincial free trade. We have freer trade with the Americans today than we do with ourselves. We have to knock down those barriers, build pipelines, LNG liquefaction facilities to sell our stuff to the world without having to go through the Americans. If they're going to be an unreliable trade partner, we've got to find ways to sell more to ourselves and more to the rest of the world.
Do you see it as a dollar-for-dollar retaliation?
I would say so, yeah. It has to hit hard. And again, we have to be very pinpoint and surgical to make sure we're maximizing impact on the American side while minimizing impact on our side.
You talk about self-reliance. Have successive governments in Canada over the decades of all stripes become too reliant, too comfortable with the notion that U.S. will always be our biggest trade partner, and they're always right there, and we can put it on autopilot?
Yes, we live next door to the biggest military and economic superpower the world has ever seen. So a lot of our economics have just been based on enjoying, basking in that glow, but we can't rely on it. And so, right now, according to Stats Can, we have about a 7% effective tariff on goods between provinces. We remember the Como decision. Some poor guy got fined because he brought alcohol from
Northern New Brunswick.
Yes, I think he was from Northern New Brunswick to Quebec. And we got to knock down those barriers. We have to approve resource projects that allow us to get our stuff to market without going through the States. Right now, we are importing oil from the Americans and the Saudis in the East at world prices, and we're selling it to the Americans at discounts in the West. It's a crazy business model. We need pipelines, we need LNG plants, we need to approve resource projects quickly so that we can become self-reliant and start making things here in Canada.
All right, so he's in the camp of doing dollar-for-dollar tariffs with the United States. Poilievre knows better than that. He knows that if Canada, and we could pinpoint accuracy, we need to focus in on what's going to hurt them the most. Poilievre absolutely knows that a dollar-for-dollar tariff with the United States would cripple Canada in about 3 months. He knows that. I suppose he does have to talk tough and say something. But why would he say the exact same thing that Trudeau said last week? Because Trudeau is a moron. Or maybe he's being advised by carbon tax Carney. So now Poilievre is saying the exact same thing except for the pipeline stuff. Dollar-for-dollar tariffs with the United States that carbon tax Carney is saying. And by the way, carbon tax Carney released a video, put this up on his X yesterday. He's looking for a replacement for that consumer carbon tax.
reaching out to everybody, whether it's out here on the canal or it's across the country, and addressing issues that really matter to Canadians. And, you know, when you look at something like carbon pricing, where it goes to the heart of, it's first and foremost, it's making this economy more competitive, more sustainable jobs. It's helping us do our bit on climate change. It's also making sure that Canadians come out ahead right now and then in the future. And what you're going to see from my campaign, my group, working with people like Stephen and many others.
He's talking about Stephen Guilbeault there, the eco-terrorist Stephen Guilbeault.
Across this country, across the party, is a solution that works for everyone, addresses all those aspects. That's cost of living, that's jobs, that's competitiveness, and that's building the strongest economy in the G7.
Next Prime Minister of Canada, people. Donald Trump is going to impose tariffs on Canada, regardless of what we say or do. It's inevitable. It's not just a negotiation tactic at this stage of the game. Maybe he could be convinced only by Danielle Smith, because he's the only one, or she's the only one he even knows and likes in Canada and has been talking to in Canada. Trudeau, no. Any of his committee there, Team Canada, no. Poilievre, no. Danielle Smith is the only one that Donald Trump has been talking to. Donald Trump was in California this past weekend, made a stop in Nevada, did a speech there, a rally there, and he was recorded by the gaggle of reporters on Air Force One talking about Canada. So this is an audio recording with a picture of Donald Trump. But listen to what he says here.
Canada's been treating us very unfairly on trade, and they've taken advantage of us for years. We're not going to allow that to happen. I love Canada. I have so many friends up in Canada, and they like us, and they like me. But Canada's been taking advantage of the United States for years. Without our subsidy, Canada, doesn't exist really. Canada's totally reliant on us. Therefore, they should be a state. Canada, we lose $250 billion a year in Canada. I could stop that in one day, and if I stopped that, Canada wouldn't exist as a state, as a country. If we're going to have to give that kind of subsidy, and we're not even talking about tariffs yet, but that'll happen on February 1st. But if we're going to lose $250 billion for the sake of supporting a country, it's not fair to us. So I don't want to spend hundreds of millions of dollars on supporting a country unless that country is a state. And if it is a state, the people of Canada would pay a much lower tax. Their taxes would be cut in half. They would have no military problems. They'd be much more secure in every way. And I think it's a great thing for Canada.
He's doing it. He's doing it whether we like it or not, no matter what Poilievre says, no matter what Trudeau does, or anybody, whoever happens to be running the show right now. He's doing it. Why is he doing it? Well, because he can. No. He has been complaining about the unfairness, especially in NATO and the United Nations, and his first two. Remember, nobody pays their fair share. This is what he said. Why should the United States of America constantly have to pay for everybody else? So very early in his second term, he is making that statement, and he's making it loudly. He's taking his closest allies, the countries he shares a continent with, Mexico and Canada, and he is going to put tariffs on us no matter what we say. They might not last, or they might be able to negotiate them over time. And who knows what that might be. 3 months, a year, don't know. He's sending a message to the rest of the world that the United States is not to be trifled with. Because all of these other world leaders, especially those in the European Union, are going to look at what Trump did to Canada and go, we can't let that happen to us. And they will capitulate, and they will do, this is Pax Americana, folks, and they will do whatever Donald Trump says, because no matter what anybody thinks, the United States still has the largest economy and the most, even with all the de-dollarization, all the BRICS nations and all of that, when you look at all the statistics and you do the math, you add them all up, the Americans are still well ahead of anybody, even after this disastrous last 4 years, anybody else in the world, even China, bar none. There is no question about it. If the Americans become completely and totally self-sufficient with manufacturing, with energy, with food, Canada gets left out in the cold pretty quick. Look at this story. Look, the CBC story. What he did to Colombia. Colombia agrees to take deported migrants after tariff showdown with Donald Trump. How long did this take? 24 hours, maybe less. And Trump will still maintain visa restrictions on Colombian officials, the White House says in a statement. The White House claimed victory in a showdown with Colombia over accepting flights of deported migrants from the U.S. on Sunday, hours after Donald Trump threatened steep tariffs on imports and other sanctions on their longtime U.S. trading partner. Long, close partners in anti-narcotics efforts in U.S. and Colombia clashed on Sunday over the deportation of migrants and imposed tariffs on each other's goods in a show of what other countries could face if they intervene in the Trump administration's crackdown on illegal immigration. Colombia gave up in hours. They imposed tariffs on coffee. Now, granted, we do a lot more trade with the Americans than Colombia does. As a matter of fact, I think 70% of the United States claim that Canada is their largest trading partner. So if we did impose tariffs, yes, I suppose it could have some kind of impact into these states. But Trump is already looking for replacements for all of the things that we provide for them, whether it's internal or from another country. And he will find them. He's throwing his weight around right now. And we're right in the path. Best thing to do with Trump at this stage of the game is do what he says. And I really don't want to say that we need to capitulate because that looks weak. But we are in a weak position and we have no other choice. And for somebody like Pierre Poilievre to say dollar for dollar, a stupid statement. And he knows better than that. I'm not sure if you've noticed this either. And never mind that Ecos poll that came out last week. That's an outlier that is obviously rigged. But Main Street Research released a poll a couple of days ago that shows the Liberals leading the Conservatives in Ontario by 1 point. Now, Main Street, I don't think they have any political skin in the game. I think they're a straight down the middle pollster. And if that's true and they're getting a carbon tax carny bounce, maybe this election, whenever it happens, is not so much in the bag as we thought. And that is terrifying. If the Liberals get in again with Mark Carney as the prime minister, they had a Holocaust commemoration in Ottawa today. Pierre Poilievre, finally, he said something that we've all wanted to hear him say for the longest time. Here is a short clip of his speech.
We see on our own streets anti-Semitism, guided by obscene, woke ideologies that have led to an explosion in hate crimes. Hate crimes were up over 100% in Canada before October 7th. Now they're up 251%, with Jews being the principal victims of those crimes. We must not just condemn these things, we must take action against them. We must deport from our country any temporary resident that is here on a permit or a visa that is carrying out violence or hate crimes on our soil.
Interesting. I have not heard him say that before. And surprisingly, the left-wing corporate media didn't attack. At least they haven't yet. Maybe they've got other things they need to lie about. Finally, before we get to the extension on shadowdavis.com for you all access members, and there's a recent interview Stephen Harper did that I want to throw up because everybody has been saying, well, Stephen Harper is on the committee of 300. Stephen Harper is actually the one behind the Conservative Party right now. Stephen Harper is evil. Stephen Harper signed us up for the climate agreements with the UN and all of that stuff. I've watched this interview, at least part of this interview that he did. And it doesn't sound like that. But you can be the judge. That's coming up in the extension. And then, of course, what the hell's going on with the Five Eyes and the corruption within CSIS Canada? Very interesting. Look at this. Millions in federal funds to recover suspected Indian children's graves in BC. Went elsewhere. According to a report, Blacklock's reporter. What was supposed to be millions spent to recover suspected children's graves at an Indian residential school in BC instead went to publicists and consultants, according to financial records obtained by Blacklock's reporter. Let me get rid of this video before it starts playing. The records were obtained under the Access to Information Act, which the Department of Crown Indigenous Relations attempted to hide, the report said. The department only released the records by order of the Information Commissioner, Carolyn Maynard. I order the minister to provide a complete response, the commissioner wrote last November 27th. The records show I can't say this and I don't want to butcher it, Kamloops, I think, and Secwepemc First Nation received more than $12 million in funding after announcing the discovery of 215 children's graves in Kamloops in 2021. That claim was later revised to 200 potential burials, and no human remains have been recovered to date, despite requests from families to return bodies, said an internal memo. And yet we flew our flags at half-mast for 9 months because of that, and Trudeau poisoned the psyche of this country, calling it a genocide. That's sick. Initially, the First Nation was rewarded nearly $8 million to uncover the grave, said the federal department. The community had received $7.9 million for field work, record searches, and to secure the residential school grounds. A spokesperson told Blacklock's last May, but later the funding went up to $12.1 million for some reason. The budget is robust and comprehensive, but what's required, said minutes of a 2021 First Nation Council meeting. The Department of Crown Indigenous Relations did inquire with the Kamloops group on what archaeological and forensic work was underway. I know you're aware of the incredibly complex nature of this type of work, wrote Mandy McCarthy, the department's acting director general. We're not seeking to intervene in this matter, but are trying to understand the approach, wrote McCarthy, who questioned whether you have all the information you need to advance exhumation protocols and DNA testing. The department censored all details surrounding the $12.1 million, however. The First Nations Health Authority transferred $2.3 million in federal funding to Kamloops organizers and did itemize some expenses for a 9-month period, the report said. Costs included $37,500 for marketing and communications, $54,000 in travel, $100,000 as 6 months' pay for 2 trauma counselors, and $405,000 in administrative costs, including speaking fees and tent rentals. The department said in one bookkeeping entry called Community Support Funding Envelope that the First Nation hired 25 consultants to provide advice and support to the chief and council and paid publicists to develop communications strategies. No consultants were named, and some $532,000 was paid for security, while other funds were proposed for public work projects. And that's the end of the story. We were robbed yet again, and the government, bureaucrats, tried to cover it up again. Wow. Absolutely amazing. Guys, don't forget to like and share. Get this out to as many people as you possibly can. I know we did a long show tonight. It's almost 2 hours at this stage. We still have the extension coming up on shadowdavis.com. And please, if you watched last night's show or you missed last night's show, it doesn't matter. Go back and watch it. It's there in perpetuity on your favorite platform, whatever, Facebook, YouTube, X, doesn't matter. Get it out. Share it. 400 ostriches are set to be killed this Saturday at Universal Ostrich Farm near Edgewood, British Columbia. So if you don't know anything about this and you missed last night's show, go back and watch it. It's very informative. It shows more government corruption and overreach and possible solutions to this. There could be some form of legal injunction this week. We know that people are on the way to Universal Ostrich Farm. Even now, I've heard several people are sending me messages today saying 200 trucks are on the way to Universal Ostrich Farm. What I can ask you, if you are going to see Katie and her mom at the Ostrich Farm this week, the cull is supposed to be, the CFIA is supposed to be showing up there on Saturday. That's the deadline. They're going to come in there. They're going to kill all 400 ostriches, they say, because they're positive for bird flu, avian flu, H5N1, with a PCR test. That's their evidence. Please, no violence. This is very important. I saw some comments last night during the show that alarmed me, and we can't do that. What we can do is get this out to the world. The world needs to see what they're going to do. So if you're going to be there, and these CFI agents are going to come in their spacesuits with RCMP accompaniment, and they're going to try and kill these ostriches, we need recordings of this. We need live streams of this. It needs to get out to the world. We need to show, and these white spacesuits with masks on, right? We need to show the world what these people are doing. And I'll tell you, aside from the sentimental and familial impact that this is going to have, if they're allowed to do this based on very flimsy scientific evidence that can be manipulated easily in a lab, PCR test, give me a break. We all know how that works. If they're allowed to do this, they're going to keep doing it. Precedent is set. They've already been doing it with chicken farms across British Columbia, but this is different. This is ostrich. This is flightless birds. There is absolutely zero threat of this getting out anywhere. And the isolation of the farm is another thing. I mean, they're close to Edgewood, I think it is, British Columbia, maybe 20 minutes away. They're 2 hours away from Kelowna, 2.5, Katie said to me last night. And as far as going across the Arrow River or Lake to get to Nelson or Castlegar, that's 3 hours. You got to take a ferry. You're not near civilization here. What is the big upset? Oh, they're working on natural remedies for disease. Interesting. So you must go and watch last night's show to find out why they're using ostriches for this. It really is quite fascinating. So that's it for the social media part of the show tonight, you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you to Sarah Choujounian for coming on and sharing her story yet again. It was nice to have her on after a couple of years. And don't forget, guys, go to sarahforfreedom.com if you want to check out that court case regarding the Emergency Act that's happening on February 4th and 5th, starting at 9:30 Eastern Time. The link is on Sarah's website. Again, that's Sarah, S-A-R-A-H, the number 4, Freedom, all one word, sarahforfreedom.com. The link is right there on the front page, I believe it is. All right, the extension is yet to come on shadowdavis.com for you all access members. I'll see you there in 2 minutes. For everybody else, I will catch you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another one. Have a great night. Love you all. Appreciate you all. Bye for now.